Good morning. My name is Pamela. Welcome to Vlogmas Day 3. Before we get to knitting, I just want to share what I crossed off my autumn bucket list this morning. So one of the things that was on my autumn bucket list was to take some lawn chairs and pack up some coffee and some blankets and go down to the lake. The lake is like less than a minute from my house. It's super close. Go down to the lake and sit on the dock with lawn chair, coffee, and cozy blankets and watch the sunrise. So I didn't want to do it alone. I wanted to do it with somebody. So my youngest daughter was totally game for that, which is very unusual because she's not an early riser. She takes after my husband in that way. They're both night owls. Anyways, I asked her if she wanted to do it, and then I set my alarm really early this morning, and when it went off, I turned it off, but I get up really early anyways. So I got up, and when I got up, I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, I do not feel like doing this right now. I was sluggish and, hadn't had coffee. I felt dehydrated, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't know. And then my daughter got up just spontaneously without me waking her up, and she said, are we gonna do this? Like, why didn't you wake me up? I thought we were gonna do this. So I said, you know what? If not now, then when? It's gotta be now. Because honestly, we're having the most beautiful autumn week of weather this week. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And generally in October in this part of the world, it's cold. You would see your breath. So it hasn't been like that. It's been between 10 and 20 degrees first thing in the morning, which still sounds pretty chilly, but it's not freezing. It's decent. So I said, you know what? Just bite the bullet and do it. So I had already made coffee. We packed up coffee and blankets and the lawn chairs, threw them in the back of the car. And you can walk there from here, but not with all that stuff. So we just kind of drove around to the little parking place and walked down to the dock. And of course, there was nobody up. The sun hadn't even risen yet. The sky was starting to lighten, but you could hear the ducks quacking and the geese, and sometimes you could see the lake was like glass, and sometimes you could see like a fish jump. It was magical, and I'm so glad I did it, and I'm so glad I can cross this off my bucket list. So we probably spent over an hour down there just relaxing, drinking coffee, chit-chatting, and watching the sunrise. And then we packed everything back up and came back up to the house. She has school today, so she had to get ready for school. Actually, she's in midterms already, which seems crazy to me. They just started in September. They've only been at school a few weeks, and already they're into the midterms. But she packed up and she left. And I turned on my knitting podcasts and did a little bit of knitting. But I still wanted to check in with you guys. And have I been saying Vlogmas? I hope not. I wanted to check in you. I wanted to check in with you for Vlogtober Day 3. Anyways, let's talk about knitting. So one of the things that I knit a few weeks back that I've shown it on Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen it already, but I haven't shown it on the podcast. And it is the Spring Fling Shawl. This is a fingering weight shawl, and it's a one skein shawl. So the pattern is by Espace Tricot. Again, I think it was a free pattern. I'm pretty sure it was. I'll link it. I will link it down below. So it's a one skein shawl, but it's made for a sock set because these tassels and the border are made with the mini. So I wanted to knit a one skein shawl for the fall shawls y'all knit along. I can't say that too well. Fall shawls y'all knit along. And I also wanted to cast on a shawl on my way to sorry, I'm hitting the table and I think the camera's shaking. I had a trip to Vienna planned at the beginning of September. So I wanted to cast on a one skein shawl and knit it while I was in Vienna because I really love how that project then reminds you of your trip. And this project will always now remind me of my trip to Vienna. I cast the shawl on in the Toronto airport. So we flew from Ottawa to Toronto and then from Toronto directly to Vienna. It's a long flight. I feel like it was 7 hours, and that's with a tailwind. It's longer. It's generally longer on the way back because you have a headwind. At least that's my understanding of the way it works. I even knit on it in the airplane, even at night when they turn the lights down. I had one of those lights that curve around your neck and point directly at your knitting or your book or whatever you have. Now, one of the things that we did is take like a bus tour around the city. So you can buy passes for a hop-on, hop-off bus system that they have different routes that go around Vienna and on the outskirts of Vienna. And with that pass, you can hop on or hop on any of those buses for however long your pass lasts. Ours was for 2 days. So I thought, I hadn't been on the bus, so I thought, I'll bring my knitting with me on the bus so I can knit while we're riding. That did not work because the seats are just too close. It would be hard to knit. Anyways, I brought my knitting, but I didn't knit. But what I did do is, at one point, I was trying to get into my seat and I sat on my knitting bag. I didn't realize until I got back to the hotel that I had sat on my bamboo knitting needle and broke it. I was using a bamboo knitting needle, an interchangeable set that I have, because I didn't want to risk having my metal needles taken away at the airport. Different airports have different rules, and I also found out from watching another podcast. Her name is Lisa, but I forget the name of her podcast. She lives in New Zealand. She was mentioning that depending on the security alert of the particular airport in question, they may allow metal knitting needles one day and then the next day they'll take them away. So anyways, I brought bamboo needles and then broke one of them. I broke the knitting needle on a Saturday afternoon and then found out that there were no yarn stores open in Vienna on Sundays. There were a lot of other things open, but a lot of stores are closed on Sunday. So I couldn't replace it on Sunday. So I couldn't replace it on Sunday. Oh my gosh, words. I couldn't replace it on Sunday either. So I felt a little bit, at odds, but we did tour around the city on Sunday. So it was fine. Monday, I found a yarn store and traveled to the yarn store. It was in the building of the most beautiful church, so gorgeous. The lady, and I'm sorry I did not get, I really wish I had gotten her name, but the lady who owns the yarn store that I went to, she was wonderful. She figured out what I needed for knitting needles, and she was also able to sell me a set of interchangeable needles to replace my other ones because they screwed onto the same cord. The needles for this project were a US size 6 or 4mm and a US size 8, and which is a 5mm for the border section. So what happened was when she replaced my needle, I started knitting differently. I don't know what happened, but the gauge was different. So the shawl had kind of a wow to it. I don't know if that's the technical word, a wow. So I felt like I had to frog it back and start again, but that was fine. To me, that was just all part of the experience. It's part of the process of knitting. I didn't mind, and it's not a big project. So I was maybe like a third of the way done, and I could have kept going, and I could have maybe tried to block out that difference. But if it wouldn't have blocked, I think I would have been disappointed because I wanted to have a shawl that I knit on my trip. Anyways, I didn't get it done on the trip. I had to finish it when I got back, but I was pretty close to it. Anyways, I'm very happy with it. This is a one-of-a-kind colorway, so the yarn dyer didn't have a name on it. It just said OOAK, I believe, one of a kind. So I really liked making these little tassels too. I have another project that I think I want to add tassels to, 2 big tassels, but we can talk about that later in the month on another vlog. So I'm just getting distracted because where I have my camera set up is right in front of a window, which you can probably tell. I think there's some reflection happening in my glasses, which I'm not really able to control unless I close the blinds and then it's too dark. So right behind the camera is a window, and the fall colors and the view is just, you're gonna get sick of hearing me talk about autumn, sweater weather. I named my podcast Sweater Weather for a reason, as well as the knitting reference. I just love the autumn and getting to wear knitted garments and the whole vibe. I think that's all I wanted to say about this project. If I've forgotten anything, just ask me in the comments below. But yeah. Oh, and I did check, and it's a free pattern. I will link to my Ravelry project below, and I'll have a link to the pattern. Modifications. So a couple modifications that I made was that I put the border on incorrectly, or sorry, I believe I put the border on correctly, but I was supposed to make a second pass to make a thicker edging, and I didn't think it needed it, so I didn't make the second pass. I think it would have made a nice, the way mine looks, you can see the border, but you can also see the edge and then the border in the back. I think when you put the border, you make the second pass on the border, it covers up this edge, but honestly, I didn't mind it. I liked the way it looked, and I really love the way the teal mini went with this sock set. So I didn't have a scale with me, so I was afraid of playing yarn chicken while I was on my trip. So I made it a little bit smaller than the pattern called for. So it could have been longer for sure. And I did have a little bit of yarn left over. Had I had a scale, I think I would have been a little bit more confident completing the whole pattern as written. And then when I was making the tassels, instead of just using the dark teal green from the mini set, I added in some of what was left of the original 100-gram skein to make it a little more blendy. And I really tried to pick out strands that had that dark coppery color because I liked the way that looked. Oh, you can see there. I like the way that looked. So I've started another book. Actually, I have multiple books on the go, which is usually how I roll. I have audiobooks that I take out from the library, generally. I have ebooks that I take out from the library, and then occasionally I will buy a hard copy of a book, paper copy. The latest book that I started is The Outsider by Stephen King. I'm not too far into it. The reason I chose this book is because a lot of people were mentioning how good his book Holly is, and then I read that The Outsider is the precursor to the Holly book. I don't think that you have to have read The Outsider to read Holly. I think it's a book on its own. But I just thought it would be a lot easier to get it from the library, read it, and then move on to Holly afterwards. So far, I'm enjoying it. So far, it's a murder mystery. I didn't read about it because I don't like to know about things ahead of time. It feels a bit spooky or disconcerting. Although I don't know if there will end up being any supernatural element or if this is just a murder mystery. I do want to give a trigger warning though. I'm hardly into the book, and there is a description of violence against children. If that is something that you cannot handle, and I know a lot of people can't, I can't myself. So depending on how this story goes, there is a chance I may abandon it because that's something I really don't find entertaining, and my books need to be entertaining. But so far I'm enjoying the story, and I do want to find out what comes next. And it does have a spooky kind of vibe because it's a murder mystery, so I feel like it's appropriate for autumn, but we will see. And I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me again, and I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I want to talk about preparation for the Stephen West MCAL. I'm planning on joining along, so I hope you will join me tomorrow and we will talk further. Bye. Thank you. Damn.